So we're absolutely delighted to welcome to the Hendon HFCTV YouTube channel the legendary pairing of Bob and Iain Dowie. Guys, how are you?
Very well, thanks, Steve. Very well indeed.
Doing great, Steve. Really well.
It's brilliant to have you on. Stories, so many stories. Iain, you are I suppose, the most famous player to have kind of left us and gone on. And Bob, you did a great job with us as a player and also as a manager when times were very, very difficult. So we're going to get into all of that. But Iain, let's start with you. You signed for Hendon from St Albans in 1986. And I think you were still a student doing an engineering degree. Talk to me about that. Why did you join Hendon?
Listen, I was playing at St Albans, had a little feeling, wasn't getting enough football time, wanted to go and play. Bob was a big character in the non-league scene, popped up. I just felt it was right. I just wanted to play more. And, I just had a good feeling about Ronnie Duke and the coaching that he did in it. And so it went that way. And, when I arrived, it hit. Well, it didn't take long to get going. We were straight in the team and straight part of it. Ted Hardy was an amazing person, one of the best fellas you've ever seen. You think about him, you Borough Market at 4 a.m, and then he's still there at 10:30 at night. Quite incredible for a man of his age. I use that different at the time, but his energy was great, and he had a raw. Although he had very few fundamentals that he would let you away with. You had to do certain things, expected it, and style of play was a lot different then. But incredible desire to win, and actually, in lots of ways, although he remained distant from the lads, was most had great relationships with him. Ronnie would be closer and more vitriolic at times, but nonetheless, you all had a great deal of respect for both the pairing.
And Bob, didn't Ted signed you as well, didn't he? I think.
Yeah, he did actually. Yes, yeah. Described me as efficiently violent, I think, or something, didn't he? Which was totally untrue. No, Ted signed me, and I'd have to say that when I came into the dressing room, Iain leaving St Albans was quite interesting because there were a lot of people at St Albans City that really thought a lot of him, and but John Mitchell really, for me, messed Iain around. He was starting to mature into a really good player. We had a forward at the club called Steve Perrin that was sort of an established player. But Iain, even in the last game of the season where we had to win the league, you scored the first goal, and I could see Iain starting to mature. But to be fair, I think Ronnie saw that in him during his time and whipped him away, and it was the best thing ever happened because he went from being sort of somebody's not quite sure and go-to guy to be the main man, and I think the thing I'd say about Ted Hardy and Ronnie is Ronnie and me had a funny relationship. We were a bit up and down. He kept telling me I was too clever all the time. You're too clever for a centre-half. But I got on very, very well with him. But Ted, for me, he was one of those mercurial managers who could build a team. Always had good players and put the right players in the right places. Didn't talk about football in any real tactical way, but built good teams always, knew what the roles were and knew what he needed you to do and selected the right players. I learned a lot from him there when I managed. I thought, don't spend your career trying to coach people and make them what you think you can make them. Pick them for what they do every day. And that was what Ted told me, pick players for what they do every day on the pitch.
When Ted came in as Hendon manager, I think we were almost doomed, and we stayed up in an amazing final night win at Slough Town. It would go down, I think, for me as one of the best nights ever. Have you guys got a favourite Ted Hardy story?
Well, I've got many. Some that couldn't be told on the podcast for sure. But anyway, one thing I think probably we played down at Yeovil and we won 2-1, and it was coming off the pitch, and a lad in the crowd spat at me out of the blue, and I go to react, and Ted jumped in between us and said, it was close, and I was trying to get through the fence at him. He just put his shoulder. If you do that, they've won. You've won. We won the game. They're out. I think it was a cup game. They're out. And and he was a big man, and he just sort of blocked me from reacting to someone doing a terrible thing. But anyway, but there's many things. I remember even he was doing. We were late when they did a team talk at the back of the bus. Lads found hilariously funny. But he just carried on. He was actually on the carpet of the bus at the back going, no, you've got to move here and move in. He's actually making lines on the carpet at the back of the bus because we were late for a game. And he never worried. I mean, listen, everyone knows about his we used to get, the lads used to give him jip about his trousers being nowhere near his, put some jam on your feet, invite your trousers down for tea, Ted. You know what I mean? He just laughed at it. He loved it. So lots of little ways. I've got lots of, I think, he didn't over communicate. I'm not saying he's a great communicator, because as Bob said, he knew he had good players. He knew, and that time he knew he had a good team, and the leaders. He had a lot of leaders in the team.
And Bob, was there cups of tea flying around in the dressing room sometimes with Ted?
I have some very, very happy memories of Ted. I mean, I remember he used to get words wrong occasionally,
all the time.
But the trouble was, if you laughed at him, he'd throw the tea at you. So all the lads used to sort of duck their heads down when they were laughing. I remember Erskine one day, Ted said, the trouble with you, son, is you're ignorant. You're totally and utterly ignorant, instead of ignorant. And Erskine started to giggle, and you could see his shoulders doing a Ted Heath going up and down. Next thing, the tea was there. And I remember one of the lads telling a story about, one of his sexual prowesses and how he'd sort of made love to this girl all through the night and everything. And Ted said something like, there's a lot of stuff going around now. I hope you were wearing one of those condors. Instead of condom, So once again, everybody started to giggle, but behind their hands, because you knew you would suffer the wrath if he saw you laughing.
And by the way, every night when the lads were going out, when they left training, if we were going out on a Saturday night, so we go our own ways on Saturday night. Don't forget to use your condors. All the lads would be saying it coming out of the car park. It's incredible.
Brilliant. So we move on a bit from Ted, and we then go on to Mickey James, I think, as manager, who led us out in the Middlesex Charity Cup final, sponsored by Russell Grant at Wembley Stadium. So for you, Iain, was that your first time playing at the stadium? What was it like, if it was? Yeah,
it was absolutely my first time playing at the stadium. I've got to say, sponsored by Russell Grant, how weird was that? And even having the trophy delivered by Russell Grant or put over to us was strange. Amazing, really, to step out. I mean, there's something special about the pitch, something special about the whole place. A local, two local teams going head to head against each other, something special, a lot of rivalry, as we well know. And I think I just had, if I'm honest, I remember I was in a sort of run of form where I was getting more and more confident, as you do when you do better. But we had a great deal of confidence in the team. The team was flowing with a lot of confidence, really was. And it took a lot to beat that side, because it had a number of components. We could defend well. We were dynamic and very, very expressive. We had creativity, particularly in wide areas, and Colin Tate floating around playing off me, or if it was Mickey Kyle the same way, whatever it happened to be. And we just listen. I never went into a game thinking we were winning, but just a quiet confidence about the team. We were very low key. It was, of course, it was a big game. For lots of lads, the biggest game of their life, but it was amazing, actually. And probably I went back there in a Simod Cup final for Southampton when it was full up, and I just remember, telling the boys that the last time I was here was with the non-league side. So it is a special place, the home of football, as you know. And you go then you lose. It's not the same. We won, and that in the end, that's what it's about.
But you scored as well, so I mean, that
I mean, do
you remember the goal, Iain?
Not the most fantastic finish as I remember, but anyway, I've got enough on it, and it's what it is. There was a lot of, so we had a lot of ability in wide areas, and if you made the right movements, I had a fantastic relationship with the lads who played in the team, and just tried to get in the right areas, part of that was natural instinct. Some of it was a bit of training, and in the end, to get on the end of something and help us win the cup was good. So I've watched it back a few times. So not so many could say they've scored at Wembley. It's a nice little thing.
And then from there, you then scored again in a 4-2 FA Cup defeat.
At Reading,
At Reading. Yeah, well, any memories of that one?
Their first goal was miles offside. I mean, I'm not being funny at the time. I think Senior scored it. He was a good player, by the way. The lad Senior, I think he scored a lot of goals from him. But I've got to say, we played well there. I mean, they were a good side at the time. We played really well. A bit unlucky to get knocked out, but yeah, I did. I was a good run of form at the time, and it's a bit disappointing. I think that at the time, well, that's right. Maybe I was 10 goals or 12 goals in the FA Cup at that time. So it was part of what I was doing, and hence I'm moving on in the pro games to starting the programming. You never forget that time, and I think we used to focus on one game. But we were on a great run of form, and we were a difficult side to beat. But I mean, no one wanted to play us, and I thought we gave Reading a really decent task. I mean, they're quality players, of course, a bit better than we did, but nonetheless, I still think the first goal's offside, and I think we had a Stonewall play. It could well have been 3-3, but they did have a little spell where we couldn't cope with them, and that's only natural as a non-league side.
So at that point, you weren't thinking of a managerial career. You were a player, and you were kind of really starting your career, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on. But Bob, you were then kind of a player, and then you became, as things changed behind the scenes at Hendon, you stepped into a caretaker manager role. How did that happen?
It was a very interesting story because Pete Taylor chased me all summer to try and come and sign for Hendon, and actually a tribute to him, he built a very good team as well. We had a lot of good players there that came and played for us. We were sort of top of the league. Then we had a little bit of a down spell. Richard Cherry was scoring lots of goals for us. Then Pete lost faith in him a little bit, and we stalled a little bit. I think I remember us drawing at Enfield, I think, and one of Rooty's famous beautiful cleared that skewed across his goal kicks that skewed across the box, straight one of their players, and we drew 1-1. And then Rich missed a sitter. But Pete didn't deal with it very well. He had a lot of good characters in that team, and he lost his rag a little bit. And then I think what happened was he got an offer of the Southend job, as I recall, and he left us for Southend. Victor Green and Elaine had sort of got to know me a little bit during trying to sign me. He called me up into the office. He said, "Would you fancy being manager?" And I thought, blimey, manager. I said, there's a lot of players there. There's Tommy Mason, Curtis Warmington, Mark Hill, Kipper, a lot of good players in the team who I thought would have come before me, particularly Tommy Mason, having been a good pro. But anyway, I said, yeah, I'd have a go. I'd just done I'd done a little bit of my coaching courses. I'd started on that path, and I was very lucky to get an opportunity. So first thing I did was sort of surround myself by good people that I thought would offer me something. And I signed Duncan Hardy, and actually Duncan might still, but was Dunk there already? He might have been there with you. Yeah, he might have been, but I signed Ian Rutherford, Shaggy, who from Luton. He was a good signing.
Gary as well. Gary, what's it called, the lad? Midfield player. No?
Yeah.
Lad from Luton? Or did he
Gary Assott. Yeah, so we had, I always remember we had me and Curtis at the back, Mark Hill left back, Lee Hunter right back, Tommy Mason left back sometimes. So really solid back four. And I think from the day I got appointed, we went on a run of about 5, 6, 7 or 8 games unbeaten, got ourselves back up in contention and finished 4th or 5th or something after stalling a little bit. And then I made a really silly decision. I decided to keep playing. I probably should have stayed at Hendon. Aylesbury wanted me to come there as sort of player coach, and they'd just come down from the conference, had ambitions to go up. And to be fair, Ivor Arbiter said to me, we had that funny spell with Victor when all of the players left. Gary Crawshaw left. Simon Clark left, good centre half, he left. And Stevenage then were vying for it, and Victor went over to them. And that sort of troubled me a little bit, and I was a little bit upset with that. And then Ivor was just first class for me. I mean, what a gentleman he was. And I wished, if I had one thing I'd change in my life, well, there's a few things I'd change in my life, but that's one thing. I would have stayed with Ivor and been his manager and stayed with him and not wanted to go back playing, because I was sort of at the end anyway, maybe a couple of years left. And I could have done that as well at Hendon as I did at Aylesbury or anywhere else, really. Went to Aylesbury, went to Enfield, won the league with George Borg and, Steve Terry and Andy Kerr. We had a good team there as well. So sort of won the league, but that was rotten. The club was rotten. Then Enfield wasn't a good club. They didn't go up because of financial issues. And probably would have been better off staying at Hendon and keeping the group together and developing that group, really,
But you won the Isthmian full.
Yeah, we won the cup, which was great. Yeah, Victor and Elaine Elaine took over and we won it for her, but we won it for Victor as well because he poured a lot of money into the club. And I was very conscious of the fact that I wanted to win it. To be fair, I didn't play in the final because I'd had an ankle operation, but we had Mark Hill and Curtis at centre half, Duncan Hardy up front. We had a really, really good team. And rather like Ted's teams and the team that Iain played in more than me, great bunch of lads, like fantastic fellas, all stay behind, great team spirit, never say die, all very close off the pitch and on the pitch and still friends to this day,
So what was it like kind of having Elaine Green as chairwoman? Because, I mean, obviously she was Victor's wife and Victor had gone off to Stevenage and Victor couldn't chair both clubs. So how did that kind of relationship work? Did she have any authority or was it Victor pulling the strings?
I think Ivor was sort of he was in the background then, wasn't he, Ivor? And Ivor spoke to me occasionally. Elaine was first class. She just, she was, as a testament, she used to cook for us, you might remember. She used to cook for all the lads and provide us dinner after training. She used to do this beautiful meatloaf and stuff like that, and all the lads liked her. She'd sing on the karaoke machines and we'd have a bit of fun with her. She was first class, really. I couldn't say any more. She was more on the business side of it rather than involved in players, whereas Victor, wanted a debrief after every game and wanted you to talk to him. She was more in the, we're managing the finances, we're a little above budget. So she would have those sort of conversations with me, less about the football. She was just totally committed to the football club and the lads. We were all like her sons. It was quite interesting. Yeah, she was great. She was really first class.
Brilliant. So you kind of left us and your career changed and you did lots of other things. Yeah. Iain, your kind of whole future then changed when Luton approached Hendon about signing you. How did Hendon's then chairman Charles Geary tell you about a possible move out of non-league and into pro football? How did that come about?
I think to be fair, Charles would like me to go to Rotherham. I think because they were offered a few more quid than anyone else in the league. So I'd Rotherham, Chelsea, Sheffield United, and Luton. I think were the four suitors. And
Doncaster as well, wasn't it?
Yeah, Doncaster.
Dave Mackay.
Yeah, and I spoke to Dave Mackay at Lib. I think they were sort of and I, but it was amazing. I went to meet Sheffield United up there, and Dave Bassett, and Dave Bassett offered me less than I was on at work to go and sign for Sheffield United. So I can't take that. And he went, "What? You're on that work?" I said, "Well, yeah." So it was. So anyway, I didn't decide to sign for. I think not much more than I was on at work for Luton at the time because my desperate desire to play football. And in lots of ways, it was a fantastic choice. And I used the plastic pitch as a thing because actually you had to catch up quickly. It was a surface you could train on a lot. So I used to do a lot in the afternoons. And Mick Mahaffich helped me and some really good players, Steve Foster, Danny Wilson, all them types of players. But you couldn't if your touch wasn't right. It's a difficult pitch to play on. So it made me get into the team. As quick as I can. Of course, I went on loan to Fulham for a period and had a great sort of 20, 30 odd games, and came back and played straight in the team and scored against Derby. So I scored on my debut actually because we played Palace in the Simod Cup. We lost 4-1, and I scored. And I think Stevie Foster said, "You make sure you keep them boots in the bag. You might be going back to non-league." And to be fair, me and him had a little set to in the training the following, and he liked that. He was a part of the test. He's a really good captain, Steve Foster. He was sort of testing me to see if I had any mettle. So I give him a little bit of a dig in training on Thursday when we lost on Tuesday. And he smiled and laughed about it. He said he might have a chance. So yeah, that was part of what it was. But a really good club with Ricky Hill. When I went there, some players they had. Mick Arthur was for me is outstanding to watch and learn from. Tim Breaker, Kingsley Black, David Priest, some Mick Kennedy, some top pros who also had great spirit. We had great team spirit, incredible, really. You know, we used to like a pint on a Tuesday sometimes, because that's what it was when there's no midweek game, and then on Saturday or we'd often meet on Sundays. Quite a social thing. Danny would drive that, Danny Wilson or Steve Foster, and yeah, it was a perfect choice in the end. I mean, you know, sadly, Ray Harford, who signed me, is no longer around. Terrible shame, but I mean, to be fair, he showed a lot of faith in me, because he later signed me for QPR and gave me the coach's job, made me take the reserve. So it's amazing. So I went in the day, I think they paid 75 grand for me, and then he didn't put me in the team. And I said, "What's happening there?" He said, "Well, you're coaching." So and then when Jerry came in, unfortunately Ray left, Jerry Francis, he let me do a bit more. So, and you know, I carried on with the coaching, which was great, and played a little bit more under Jerry. But yeah, so Ray was, you know, I've got a lot to thank Ray for. He had a lot of belief in me, to be fair. So went on to have some good times there, and you know, really enjoyed it. Good baptism, and then had a couple of decent moves at some clubs that, you know, in West Ham and Southampton. I you know, had fantastic times, and then thankfully came back to West Ham, but also had QPR in the middle at the end. So yeah, it was fascinating. Of course, Crystal Palace was something I'd go back to as a manager. So yeah, it was a real, Luton really was a good bedding ground, because they had really good senior pros who run the dressing room, but the standards were very, very high in training.
So no regrets looking back, and we're going to wrap up in a couple of minutes just talking about your favourite Hendon memories. But you left a good job with British Aerospace to go into the pro ranks. Any regrets from you when you kind of look back all those years ago?
No, I think, you know, no regrets. I mean, listen, I've still got a fantastic relationship with them. As Bob knows, we're in a WhatsApp group with the Hendon lads who it's been terrible, we haven't been able to see, but you know, Wade, it's run by Wadey and AC, still bitching like a mother, and like their wife and husband. But yeah, wonderful people I met then, and wonderful people at Luton, and then at other clubs I've been at. So I've been very fortunate. Of course, you have ups and downs and all sorts of bits and pieces, but I wouldn't change it. Of course, you'd make some different decisions in life, and I could go on that. I could probably be here for 20 minutes telling me the decisions I got wrong, which you do, but I certainly think signing for Hendon was a massive thing for me, my personal development, and signing for Luton was the perfect club, because it had top senior pros who made you better players by their standards. And yeah, that was a big, you know, they took me from what was a decent non-league player to being a Premier League player, which, or, you know, first division player as it was at the time. And, you know, for Luton to stay in the league for as long as we did, and then unfortunately, you know, a few of us moved on and then they went down. But, you know, it looks like they're bouncing back a little bit. But it's a great club. And shame they don't get a bigger ground, because they'd certainly fill it. But yeah, so choices I'd never really change. Of course, you make loads of different decisions in life that I'd probably got wrong later on, but that's what we all do.
Okay, so we're going to wrap up. Bob, favourite Hendon memory?
Wow.
Well, favourite Hendon memory, I guess taking over as Hendon manager, walking down to the training ground on a Thursday night, announcing to the lads that I've been made manager. Curtis Warmington slapping me on the back and said, "You'll be a good manager, son." Tommy Mason doing the same. The Donnelly brothers started kicking balls over the side of the stands, because they obviously didn't know who I was and didn't really want to be there. So I asked them both to leave training, and they were going to have a confrontation with me until Curtis told them to go in the dressing room and get lost. So, you know, Kurt was a great lad. I loved him dearly. I loved him as a person. I loved him as a centre half, just a great character. But no, I mean, I think taking over the club that night in my first managerial role, it gave me a start and ended up being a fairly decent non-league manager and a decent coach. And Iain gave me a great opportunity to come and be with him at Palace. No, I think that was the start of it all, really. And I'd just like to say what a splendid, one of my best memories ever was Ivor Arbiter. I thought he was just a wonderful man and a tribute to himself, and a great custodian of our club, Hendon, because he really gave more than he got, to be fair, which I think in life is always a great thing to be judged by. Great person, great man.
And Ian, your favourite Hendon memory?
So there's many really, because in that run of games where I couldn't stop scoring, I think a couple of hat tricks in the FA Cup. I've got to say, Bob will probably remember this. It's not the one at Wembley. Funny enough, it's actually playing the replay of the game against Hayes at their ground. Well, after all the debacle that went on, winning the game there, and just the look on Reg Lever's face when we won the game at the end. Well, when I scored in the early sort of stages of the game, and it was a ball played up, and he was coming to clear me out, and I let it run through my legs and run behind him. So but just winning that game, because all wasn't gone on, and you know, in some ways a dark day in football, but it was a big performance against a big side at the time. That probably sticks in my mind. Of course, the cup final was a big win, but we had so many big wins that year, you know, and so many great games. And you know, I had a few words, Ted, but I remember sitting with him after winning the game in the bar. And he used to always come in late. And to be fair, he never used to buy a drink. To be fair, nor did he need to, because the lads loved him. And he just sat down, his legs wide, he's that short, little stocky lad. And I think I'd scored in the game, and a wet night. He just looked over me, and just nodded at me. And you know, you didn't get any more than that. It's enough. He told you, he nodded at you. You'll be all right. You know, one of them. No, thanks very much. When he didn't need, because we all paid whatever we were and wages, but he just nodded at you. And I've got to say, the dressing room was a special place to be in that team. Special place to be in that team. Some great characters, great people. I mean, from all the times from Bob being there, from Duncan Hardy, big characters, Wadey, Tatey, AC, Rooty, Ferns, all the lads, Erskine, Phil Gridley, fantastic people. You know, a pro dressing room. I'm not being funny. Dermot, a lot of them lads, I know Grids went on and had a good career, but a lot of them lads were very unlucky. Wade, you think how unlucky not to play. So at top level for a long time. Another flick of they could have had a career as equally as good as me. So I thought it was a pro dressing room, but with added fun. It was just a great place to be.
I think we should all remember Dermot as well. What a great,
of course,
player he was, you know, and he had a big hand. I mean, I left Hendon and went into the Middle East, and I came back to see Ian play a year later after, and they went down. I think you were down at Bognor Regis, and had Dave Thomas playing, didn't they? I think in the team, and you scored a far post header. You were about 2 foot above the crossbar and headed it down, and then you scored an overhead kick. And I just saw such a difference in you in that time. You know, it was. I think when I went pro, I don't know. I think I got 32 goals by Christmas or something. But Dermot, I think I look back. I think Dermot had set up 21 of them. Yeah. Something like that. So, you know, I had a massive career, and, you know, the shock and horror, and still to this day, of losing him is such a thing. Because what character he was. Yeah, he was indeed. Great.
Yeah. So he was a very special player. Listen, guys, Bob, Ian, thank you so much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure. Bob, we'll hopefully see you again at the next game when we remember Dermot. And Ian, if you can get down to London and join us.
I'll try and make it down there. Perfect.
That'll be lovely. Guys, thank you so much. Take care.
Thanks, Steve. See you, Bobby.
Bye-bye.
Cheers, pal.